Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Sai Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Good morning, Sai, or good day, depending on what time it is for you. As
Hello, Tessa.
I was thinking this morning about how when we get off the phone or leave a meeting or a dinner that we've gone to together, how I leave that experience feeling, wow, I feel so great. It's always so great to be around Sai.
Same.
And then I think about how many people I'm around that it's just like, wow, that person like stole that time from me. Like that was hard to get through.
Mm,
And then I thought about how often we talk about how important it is to make sure you're around the right people because being around the right people affects your mentality and how you see the world and your ability to accomplish things, whether they're large or small, or just to make it through the day sometimes.
mhm, mhm.
What tools have you found that are helpful to like either deprioritize how you react to the difficult people in the world or to just not allow them to impact you? Like, do you just say, nope, I'm not going to deal with them, or just you don't engage even though you're around them? But I think we all deal with that, like, person
Mhm.
who is, or at least more than one person who's just like, wow, you are the energy vampire.
I love that, the energy vampire, yeah. Sucking out all the good vibes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Like it's hard to like
Absolutely.
cleanse yourself of that person.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think it can depend. I think that there's so many different different versions of this, right? So I think that there are times where there are people in your life, that they're toxic and you can just cut them right out. I've done that. I've definitely
Same.
done that. I've recognized it. I see you. And then, usually what happens is that it comes to like this threshold, like we all have our limits and you have like this kind of bright red line in your spirit of something. And once the person crosses that, it's like, nope, it's not worth it. Like, it's not going to happen. And that's definitely happened before with friends, unfortunately, where I thought, oh no, I don't want to be associated with this person anymore. And that's it. I think it can get
Right.
a lot more complicated, in different parts of your life. So, family can be always a challenge because you don't get to choose who your family is. You can
Yeah.
have challenges at work where you don't get to choose who your boss is or who your coworkers are. Anytime that you're in a situation where, you're in a space with people and you don't get to choose who those people are, or it's not easy to cut them out. I mean, even in other relationships that we choose to get in at one point, intimate partner relationships, for example, there might come a point where, your lives are so entrenched. It's so complicated now, right? Like things are just so intertwined and it might feel impossible to just cut somebody out of your life, right? You get married sometimes and people think of it as you're becoming one, for God's sake. So, and sometimes you kind of do, right? In a lot of regards, you kind of do, and it feels impossible to think about, how would we even start to untwine this or unravel this. And so I just want to recognize there's so many different, ways that this could look.
Oh,
In
definitely.
general, yeah, in general, for me, I have found that the first and most important step in dealing with difficult people is to recognize, that it is what it is, that it's coming from them, that it's negativity that, is not about me. That has been like the biggest, you know, milestone for me is to I was, as I'm sure I've talked about, I was a very sensitive child, and I think that like a lot of people's, the things that people project out, they get stuck on you, and you internalize them as, something to do with you, something about you, something, that you must have done that was bad, or, maybe you're putting out something, and that's why you're getting this back type of thing. But just being
Oh my
able to
God,
be
that's
Mhm.
horrible, right?
I know,
To
it
think
is.
that you would deserve
It is.
that type of response.
Absolutely. But it's very human nature, and it's actually the core of where a lot of trauma comes from. So a lot of the trauma that we're dealing with today comes from internalized things that people project onto us as children. And when you're a child, I've learned recently that you you only see things as being about you in that way, where you're thinking, well, when I'm good I get rewarded, and when I'm bad I get punished. So if somebody's doing something bad to me or punishing me, I must have done something bad. Like, that's the logic of children. And you know we often try to like put our grown up mentality on, well, a child should have done this or that, or they should have just told somebody, or something to that effect. But the truth is that children don't think that way. Children think in very simplistic terms of like, I'm either being good or bad, actually. And that taught me a lot, because I see a lot of people struggling today with trauma that comes from childhood, and it's just that they think that they are bad. They still think that they are bad, just and that's just the thing that they've carried since they were children. And so, yeah, I know it's terrible, but I think it's also very, very common, unfortunately. And it's something that maybe you're struggling with, somebody who's listening today. Maybe that's something you're struggling with. You feel bad about yourself, or you feel like, the bad things that are happening to you, you deserve them. And we're here to tell you that that is not true, that you are good. And that just you feeling that means that you want to be a good person, you are a good person. And, you know, the big switch for me was really just being conscientious and understanding that, oh, this person that's being so nasty to me, or just being so negative, even generally, maybe it's not even directed to me, but I'm feeling that energy. It probably has a lot to do with them and what they've been through, and the trauma that they're carrying, and the stuff that they're going through, or, the anxieties that they're feeling, or the bad day that they're having. And that has been one of the biggest and first tools that I would mention, is being able to just see that, and turn the origin or the source away from myself, and think about how it might be more about the other person.
When you're thinking about what do you do with that then person who is difficult for you and making that decision, we started off talking about with maybe I need to cut that person out of my life, or maybe, or do I figure out how to deal with that person? I think maybe the safest, most protective answer is I cut the person out. But as you noted, it is not an easy choice, and it's not one that society like looks upon
Mm.
favorably, right? Because there's this whole
Mhm.
idea, oh, you're not going to be a quitter, whether it's a personal relationship or a friendship or an intimate relationship, or especially
A
if it's
failure?
familial.
You don't wanna be a
Yeah,
failure at a relationship. You don't want your relationship to fail, do you? The F word.
which is such a weird situation because
Right.
sometimes two people just
Mhm.
are toxic for each other, and that's
Absolutely.
just who they are, and it's not a right or wrong situation. It is a oil and vinegar situation, and
Yeah. Or maybe just a timing situation, like, maybe y'all were
oh
great for
yeah,
each other in your 20s, and guess what? In your 30s, not so much, like, or whatever. Things
right. Because
change, people change.
and it could be friendships, it could be business
Mhm.
relationships, like,
Yep.
you know, something I think about Gen Z is how quickly they change jobs, and
Mm.
that was never really my mentality or my character trait, but I'm like, "Wow, I really admire that."
Yeah. Yep. Yep, and I yeah, and I'm probably one of those people, but I because I think that you can see what's good for you, what's not. And, we used to think that I mean, I really think that there's just these expectations of like, this is what you're supposed to do in and like in a work setting, in a relationship, like you're
Oh,
supposed to
yeah.
make it work. You're supposed to make it work. You're supposed to like bear down and just, bear through the hard times and it's going to get better. And, we have seen just as a society, I think that that's not true. We have seen
Yeah.
people in bad relationships that, they're just abusive and they're just being abused for years and years and it doesn't get better. It gets worse usually, right? And we've seen
Yeah.
it. Like we've been raised sometimes in those homes and we've seen it firsthand. And so you can't tell us that. You can't lie to us anymore. We know the truth, right? And it's the
Right.
same thing with work. Like we've seen maybe we've seen our parents or people that we love or whoever in our generation before us just like be miserable, just
Yeah.
working these jobs that they hate, bearing down, grunting through it, taking it out on their families, frankly, just that ripple of negativity and people don't want that anymore. People are conscious in a way that I think maybe they never have been before or not in mass
Hmm.
anyways, where people are saying no, we have to protect we have to protect our uplift. We have to protect our mental wellness. We have to live now, not in 70 years when we get to retire. And I mean, if for my generation it's like we know we ain't going to retire like we just we're faced with so many incredible new challenges that it just isn't even the same narrative as a generation before us. It just isn't. Like all of those promises we've seen broken and we don't believe it anymore, right? And so I think that actually it's a good thing. Like we're in a growth moment generally. And
Hmm.
I think that we can take this lesson all the way up and down through our lives because you can really appreciate the fact that if something is not good, if something does not feel right, that old world, sense of obligation, um,
I don't know, is it old world or is it like, for me, excuse me, coming from a different continent,
mhm,
it feels more like, it feels very American, right? This kind of
that's true.
puritanical cleansing. Everything has to be pristine all the time, and
Oh
you're going to
yeah,
hide it if it's not. Like,
those
for me, that
puritanical
seems,
values are real.
yes, yes,
They are entrenched like no other.
yeah.
That's so true. I mean, I think of it as old world because I think of it like I associate with like Catholicism. Mexican
Oh,
culture is like all the way old world for me. Like and it goes all the way back. And so, I mean, it's all the same for me. It's like I'm living in it. I always have been. And so it's hard. It's hard to
yeah.
untangle that and to also not feel like just like you're being a bad person, really. Like, I think we have to recognize that like those values aren't just theoretical values or some kind of philosophical thing that we talk about in books or something. This is what we are socialized to believe. Like if you're a good
Hmm.
person you'll stand by your man. I mean, like stuff like
Oh,
that is real. Stuff like that is
isn't that
very real. Come on. Yes.
wild? I mean, that
Wild.
exists.
It's still, I mean, it's still a thing. Like, I mean, I recently have just like defended people who um we're just like I can't deal with it anymore and like I need help with this and like I still hear people saying like, oh well, it's your job, it's your obligation to like take care of this person, you married this person type of thing. And I'm like, this is wild. And I'm just like, nope, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna say the complete opposite. And
Yeah.
what's amazing to me, and this is why it's so important for us to be here, like this is why we think that it's important to have these conversations, because I know that there are people out there right now, hopefully people listening, that get that messaging, that negative, manipulative, I will say, messaging that someone is telling you to keep you where you are, keep you in your place, keep you doing what you're doing, keep you serving somebody that you don't want to serve anymore. And
Mhm.
I just want to be here to tell you that you don't have to do that. You do not have to
Yeah.
do that. They don't control you. And you're probably an adult human being. This is what I like to tell people all the time, you're a grown ass woman is what I usually say because it's usually a woman I'm talking to, and you can do whatever the hell you want. And so I just want to
Yeah.
make that clear that that's my stance. And if anyone has never told you that before, if no one's ever told you that before, I'm here to tell you that that's true. You can take control of your life and you can serve anyone, no one, yourself. I highly suggest. And and don't apologize for it.
It's kind of like being more intentful, which we've talked about before, but turning that intent inward so that we are
Mm,
good at making sure that we are associating with and interacting with people that fill us up as opposed to bring us down.
absolutely. And also like re and also just checking in on that all the time. I think that's the other thing is
Oh, that
that,
is so
you
key.
know, we talk
Yes.
about building our personal advisory board. We talk about, surrounding ourselves with five, incredibly positive people that lift us up or what have you. And that's important. I don't know why I said five. It doesn't have to be five. It can be as many people as you need. It could be one. But but we don't often take stock of where we
Yes.
are. And we sometimes often get into the space of like, oh, these are the good people. This is the life that I've built. I've architect, I've constructed this life. I've been the architect of this whole thing. Um, and then you might get married to it in a way that's like, okay, well, I built it. I don't want to let go of it. I worked really hard to find these people. But like I said just a moment ago, people change, things
Yep.
change, you change, you might change, and that's okay, right? You might outgrow some people, or that's not even the right term. You might just be going in different directions, right? Like, and
Hmm.
that's okay, like to recognize and understand and to feel grateful for what you all were able to offer each other when it made sense. So I think that's the other part is just taking stock, being reflective, being conscious, and being intentional about revisiting and making sure that everything that you built around you is still the right thing for you in this moment in your life.
And that I think it's that acceptance of that will change, right? Like I think about how my friendships have evolved and either have evolved with me or kind of like
Mm.
evolved apart, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Especially as a woman who is dedicated to her career, I we don't have that natural network that say
Right.
the chosen ones have.
Mhm.
That's,
Mhm.
slapping you on the back kind of thing. And you have to be very intentful about that because I noticed like I had some friends early on in my career who were just very content with the status quo and
Mm.
didn't want to rock the boat.
Mhm.
And you sit there, and at least I did, thinking, wow, so they think because this is how it is, this is how it should be.
Right.
And
Right.
those are two different things, I think, when we're evaluating the situation. Just because it's always been one way doesn't mean that's how it should be. Even for you, right? Like as you change and you grow, you notice that situations change, people change. And
Mhm.
just because the rules were there, say these, whatever the rules might be, probably imaginary, but those
Mhm.
made up rules that were probably made up by somebody else, are they working for you?
Mm.
Is it furthering what your goals and wants are? And it could be something as simple as I just want to be around people that make me feel better about myself. And
Yeah.
when I feel better about myself, I help others more, or I am more confident in helping myself, whatever those goals might be. Doing that work to just check in all the time, so important. And it doesn't mean that
Absolutely.
you are wrong or the people you've been associating with are wrong or it's been some horrible decision you've made. It just means things are moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you talked about the workplace situation and how people change jobs, and I just have to share, like, personally, that there has always been an impetus of, like, the people that I was working with, I didn't, they showed me something where I was like, "Okay, no." This is
Okay.
not gonna work.
Oh, I'm so sorry you've had such bad work experiences.
You know what though? It's moved me along and you know, I got something from every one of them. I did.
Good.
And it's not that, you know, toxic behavior is a good thing or that, you know, it made me stronger or built my character, any of that.
Oh, isn't it a horrible
I
thing to say to people,
yes,
right? Like,
I can't
"Oh,
stand
you
it.
grew stronger from that situation."
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even not to get religious, but you know, people like God only gives you things that you can handle or whatever. I just heard that the other day and it made me just like scoff type of thing. I was like, even in the context that these people are using it right now, it was like in a movie or something. I was like, that's literally not true. It was like, I'm like, it doesn't even make sense that you're saying that right now. It was like, I want to say the example because it was so interesting to me. It was like, it was a mother who had these children and they were being taken away from CPS and you know by the department and it was like she was struggling with addiction and she was struggling with all of these things and probably a lot of trauma and she couldn't handle it on her own and then like just after they showed that they told the next person who was getting the kids like oh God only gives you things that you can handle and I was like what about the other person couldn't
Oh,
handle it. I was just like, what? I don't understand. But anyways, sorry, that was the side. But generally speaking, I feel like we have to think about all of those experiences that we've had and that we have, for me anyways, like, you know, gotten something out of them, maybe even thrived in those situations, but despite the toxic behavior, despite the
yeah.
negativity, despite, you know, people trying to hold me down and hold me back, like despite all of that, you know, this is what I got from it. And it's not a brag, like that's not a good thing. The good thing would
Right.
be finding people that support you and will help you and will lift you up. Like that's the goal, right? And so I just want to make clear that, you know, martyrdom is not cute. That's what I want to say. Like martyrdom is not cute. Like there's nothing, you know, like literally that word is so perfect for what I'm trying to is say because we know what that is. Like that is
Mhm.
literally the glorification of somebody who sacrifices themselves, you know, for others and for a cause or for whatever, for a people, whatever it might be. And my argument is that society is really, especially on women, but on most people, I think, just pushing us to sacrifice ourselves,
Yeah.
you know, literally, physically, mentally, emotionally, in every way, honestly. Sacrifice, you know, time with your family. Sacrifice, you know,
Oh,
eating
yeah.
well. Sacrifice sleep. Oh, Jesus,
Oh.
sacrifice all your sleep, right? Like,
Yeah, that
it's,
that rem that
yes.
reminds me of this, news clip from a couple of weeks ago now that Elon Musk said that he admired workers in China because they would work for 72 hours
Mm,
straight, and I was just
that's
like,
that toxic shit right there. I'm sorry.
yeah, just like, what
That is
human
it.
stays awake for 72 hours? Are
No,
they
we
on
are not
speed? How does this work?
robots. No, and yeah,
Yeah,
really, like literally, I mean, some of these industries are fueled by drugs. I mean, because it's unrealistic. It's like you have to
yeah.
be superhuman. So, and I think all of us, you know, probably take different types of drugs, like, you know, with caffeine and alcohol. Like, I mean, all these different things that we have to do just to survive these unrealistic, uh, 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 you know, kind of like sacrificial, oppressive type of standards and expectations. And yeah, I mean, I could get really radical really quickly on what I think work should look like, but um, I do think that you know, at the end of the day, we all need to just be in tune with ourselves is the
Mhm.
main thing that I would wanna express first and foremost is to be in tune with yourself and to prioritize, you know, your well-being in general, protect your uplift by, you know, checking in with your body. And I can tell, like even right now, like I'm getting all hopped up because of this conversation. And I can check in with my body right now and I can feel like a little tension you know, and I just release it. You know, I release it. I can like know where it is and I can just like release it and relax, you know, my thigh or my shoulder or whatever. And And so I feel like it's the same thing, like in small ways. You know, if you're having to go through a hard work conversation, you have to dealing with difficult people at work, for one example. Um, you know, take the time to really give yourself the space and the energy and the time to heal from all of that. And that might sound, like a lot, like you have to heal from this massive thing, but really, like after every difficult conversation, it's just like a physical thing. Like you're getting hurt a little bit. You're getting hurt
Yep.
emotionally. You're getting hurt mentally, and it's just like getting a little cut. Like maybe you had a little paper cut, you need a band-aid. You had this
Hmm.
conversation, somebody threw in a little jab at you, right? They said a little something negative about you, and that might hurt. I know that depending on the day, that can that can hit me different ways. I could shrug it off one day, another day it cuts deep. And so
Yeah.
you have to be able to like just be human, like give your like just recognize your own humanity, right? Just recognize that it's okay to feel hurt, and then like also it's okay to like prioritize healing, whatever that means for you. Like, for me it might mean I'm gonna take the rest of the day off of work. I don't know. Like maybe it means I'm gonna get some extra sleep. Oh, the other day I just plopped right into bed. Like I got home and went straight to sleep and it was so good. It's just exactly what I needed. It just might
Very
mean so
nice.
many different things for you. So I think being conscientious is the very first step.
And you touched on something about how it's not us, it's them, right?
Mm,
Like
mhm.
where all this stuff comes from when we feel like someone has said something that is harmful to us or affected us in some way. It's that reminder of our value doesn't come from other people, like our
Absolutely.
self-worth.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that's really hard to remember at times.
Yeah, especially when people put you down. I'm just gonna be frank. Like when people say anything, that feels like an insult to me, I still feel it. Like I just said I used to be so sensitive. I am still sensitive. I am. And so it's the reality, except for I have some more tools on how to deal with it. And that's what I want everyone to have, really, because, it can eat away at you. And that's where resentment breeds. That's where things get really toxic, actually, is when you let
Mhm.
them fester. And so if you can get better and better at seeing negativity and disassociating it from, yourself, and recognizing the source of where it's coming from is the person that is spewing it out, and not letting it detach to you. And even when it does, even when it gets you, even when it hurts you a little bit, going and going to a space where you can have healing for yourself and detach it from you in that way. Um, I think all of that helps. And when you start to be able to recognize, negativity, versus positivity, because sometimes it's hard to recognize, right? Like
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
people do these tricky things. Like we're very complex beings. Human beings are so interesting and complex, right? We are not like just like, I'm going to hurt you and then I'm a bad guy, and I'm a good guy over here that always is good. We're very complex, so there's that passive aggressive thing, there's the slights, there's the frenemies. I mean, we have all this language because it's real. These are real things that we encounter. And even as adults, you have to be able to say, okay, this is not making me feel good. And it doesn't mean that you can't, work with this person or you can't find ways around it or what have you. But at the same time, you have to recognize when it's happening and recognize that it's not you, it's them. And then you have to be able to, take care of yourself regardless of where this negativity came from, because it eats away. It just eats away
It
at you.
it does, and I think, yeah, sometimes we're inclined to react in that situation, whether it's
Mm,
family
yes.
or friends or
Yes.
colleagues who do something, and it's that learning to not react, and I can't every time it happens to me, I think of this idea that I will not allow them to see me
Mm,
stoop to their level or see me get upset
mhm.
about it, right? Like,
I
I
like
feel as
that.
if
Yep.
I don't want to give them that power to know
Yeah,
that they
that
have the
satisfaction.
ability.
Yep.
Yeah, to do
And
that.
that's what they're trying to do. That's yeah, that's one of my thoughts is generally like it can be very intentional, or even if it's not conscious, it is intentional because people have what I call unhealthy relationship habits, or healthy relationship habits. And so conflict is something we all have to deal with, right? And some
Mhm.
people know how to deal with it in a healthy way, but most people, I'm going to say most that I
Oh,
know,
yes. I think it's
do
an
not.
understatement, but
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Most people are going to deal with this in a very unhealthy manner because that's, again, what we've been socialized to do. And so, one of the biggest things you can do, one of the best things that you can do for yourself, I think, is to learn healthy relationship habits because not only does it serve you in your relationships, but it also can be it can be instructive for other people. Now, it's not your responsibility, your job to teach other people, that this is how you treat people decently. That's not, I don't want anybody to think that they're going to like save people and, change people because that's a dangerous, it's a dangerous mentality. But one thing that I do um, always recommend is, teaching people how to treat you at the very least is just a general rule for myself where if you're able to be assertive and tell people, yes, this is how I like to be treated, and no, you will not treat me this way, or that is unacceptable. When you're able to say things like that and it's not a screaming match, a crazy
Mhm.
fight of just like wildness um and you're really not communicating, but when you're able to communicate assertively that this is how I will be treated and everybody understands that and there will be consequences, that are not about just being emotional, but that are real consequences if you do not, treat me the way I deserve to be treated. That's another big tool, honestly. Like I've had to give people ultimatums, I'm not gonna lie. Like and just let people know, like, I see what you're doing right now. I don't like it. It's unacceptable. And if it continues, like this relationship is over or I just won't be coming around anymore. And that's something that, I don't want to do. I don't like it. But you know what? People do it all the time without giving the ultimatum. People will just
Yes.
stop coming around, and I think that that's worse. In my opinion, I'm being ultra fair by letting you know this is what's going to happen, and so you can make choices now. And
So
we're both fully aware whether or not you're going to make the right or wrong choice when it happens, right? And that's I think that to me is more fair than just letting resentment fester and just grow, and then you just stop talking to each other, and then you just and that's fine too if that's the only way to get somebody out of your life, you need to get out of your life. Or if you're already there and that person, you think this relationship is toxic and, maybe you need to ghost them. Maybe you need to get out slowly, just by less and less contact, whatever way makes you safe and happy, frankly, do that. But for me, if I really care about somebody, I really love them and they really matter to me and they're not treating me well, I let them know because I think that's the most fair thing to do, and it actually gives us the opportunity to save the relationship.
it is just setting healthy boundaries. Like this is a
Mhm.
maybe not the most perfect example, but I think it fits because it's well, a sense of my enjoyment or not. So I am a fan of Austin FC, the
Mhm.
MLS team in Austin. And so Jake and I, my husband, were watching a game a few weeks ago, and I'm scrolling through Twitter during halftime, and I see like one of the fan organizations like post some like really offensive things about
Mm.
players because they weren't doing what they thought they should be doing, right?
Mm.
And so I reply or DM them like, be a better leader. This is not helpful. Be part of the solution.
I
Because
love it.
I know me, I would have been like, block. But at the same time, it's like, I like this organization. I like
Yeah.
being a fan of it.
Yeah.
And I want the fan groups to also like have the right boundaries
Absolutely.
for themselves. And I apparently decided that I was going to take this upon myself, which is not my normal personality at all. I don't go around replying to comments or doing anything like that ever. And
Mhm.
sure enough, they took the comments down because they were just, horrific, right?
Mm,
Like, it was all sorts of slang and it was
mm,
not in English. And I had to ask my husband for translation of what this meant because,
mm.
well, my Spanish is more related to things that come out of textbooks and not what one would hear on the street.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, that's just not right. So,
No, yeah,
and you don't have to go
absolutely.
around like making the world behave to rules that you want.
Right.
And so maybe it's not the most perfect example, but it's that setting the boundary. And so
Mhm,
I set a boundary with somebody who I have no idea who they are. And maybe that's a way to practice, right?
mhm,
Slowly set certain boundaries. Or if you're at the line at the grocery store and you're checking out and you're having a really crappy day, and the person generally asks, how was your day? And you would like to say, it really sucked. And instead, you could choose to say, it's not the best day for me to answer that question,
I love
right? And
that.
like, that's your boundary
Yeah.
for the day.
People
Set a
don't know how
boundary.
much power they have. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I'm sensing from what you say too. Like, I'm thinking about so many people that just stay silent and do what
Hmm.
they know. So one of the things is like we are so receptive. We are so receptive of other people's needs. As social animals, we are, we're just wired for that. Like we can see it on someone's face. We can tell what they're saying with their language, with their body language. Like we know what people want, and we are so socialized to be pleasers and to just please all the people around us, to be people pleasers. Like we are so pushed in that direction. And so
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how much power there is in health. Like people talk about
Nope.
healthy boundaries, and that's helped me understand what needs to happen. But I almost feel like we should start like rebranding it in a way of like asserting your power, asserting your power and
Yeah.
your autonomy, right? Because like again, you're a grown ass person. You own this life, right? You get to make it whatever the
Hmm.
hell you want and unapologetically, like you're a free person. And I think all too often, like society just keeps trying to like push us into these corners of like, you will do this, you will do that, you will do what I want. And it's kind of strange. I'm thinking about like all the jerks of the world and how they get ahead. And
Oh, yeah.
and it sucks because, it's so infuriating that those types of people they get ahead, but you know why? Because
Yeah.
they're asserting their power. They really are. And it's, I want to see a world where all of these good people that I know are out there, which is most of us, that want to do good in the world, that want to make the world a better place, that are good to one another, instead of just like cowing down to the really aggressive or, assertive people that happen to also be kind of terrible. um what if we were those people, like asserting our power
Yep.
and getting into places where we can take care of one another, but also like not being apologetic and not, bowing down to, the alpha male, basically, right? Like, I think that there's so much like just animal behavior going on that ends us in these weird places where we're serving people we don't like and people we don't agree with.
Right. Something just popped into my head. It made me think of, say, sitting with either your family or your colleagues, and someone says something where you've set your boundary
Hmm.
and they don't respect it. And it's this idea of why you don't have to prove your boundaries to other people either.
Right, right.
And I feel as
Absolutely, yes.
though oftentimes when we set boundaries, at least when we first start setting them, we say something like, I'm sorry, but,
Uh-huh.
or we set
Yes.
our boundary, that we apologize for setting our boundary. And we need to
Yep.
take that out of our language because
Oh,
it is okay to set your boundary.
preach. 100%. I mean, it's gotta be a habit. I think that we have to change that. So like it's just like when, we have the habit of just saying I'm fine or I'm good or
Hmm.
all of that. Like we have to get into and be thoughtful and intentional about our language and how we are communicating and asserting our power in the world. We really we need to be thinking about this, and we need to be, you know, putting it in the cycle of habit because that is so common. I mean, I can relate to that for sure, where it's just like, that it's going to be hard to say this to this person. You know that they're not going to take it well. and already you're thinking about them and
Mhm.
their reaction and their experience with this when, this person might be stepping all over you and just trying to, control and manipulate you, and you're sorry to them? Why? Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I want your neck off of, your boot off of my neck. Like, excuse me? Like, like, what? This is insane, but it's true. Like, this is how we are taught to behave in polite society, right? So I love that, calling that out, thinking about that before you walk in to that conversation. Maybe that's the rule. Like, don't apologize. Be, like, be in your power, step into that power, assert that power, and you have nothing to be sorry for. You have every right and you are worthy of having, your personal boundaries respected. Why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why not?
And I think we're probably most sensitive to, and I think overly apologetic for our boundaries when we do them in our personal relationships, in our
Mm.
familial
Mhm.
relationships. I think
Mhm.
maybe it's easier to start in kind of colleague situations, and probably a lot harder to implement when it's setting boundaries with your immediate family or your closest friends. Your closest friends probably read you better than your immediate family, though. So I'll focus on immediate family who sometimes oversteps those boundaries pretty quickly. And I think it's
Yeah.
incumbent upon us to sometimes you might have to set that boundary, the same boundary, multiple times. I know that I personally have had to set the same boundary multiple times with
Mm.
my sibling, and it was hard the first time, and then it became very frustrating as I had to set it multiple times. And now I'm
Mhm.
at a decision point of, do I continue to set it or do I just shut that person out?
Mhm.
And it's that what we talked about earlier, that kind of constant checking in on things to see where you are, to see, is this providing, say, the nutrients that you need to grow, as I
Yeah.
stare out at my garden and think in gardening terms.
I love that. But that's totally what we are. And I mean, it's such a good analogy actually because, sometimes we're in a place where we're not getting what we need. We're not getting the sunshine we need, right? We're not getting
Yeah.
we're not getting filled back up. Our cup is not getting filled. We're not getting the water that we need. Or we might be living in soil that is toxic and we need to change it all the way out to grow. Um, just the analogy of being able to grow and have the right all those ingredients that you need to actually grow, or even survive, right? It's
Yeah,
very
I think
apt.
we have to understand that it'll change and adapt even for ourselves, right? Like we
Mm,
could start by just not reacting to the person, and
mhm,
then we could progress to we're setting boundaries with that person, and then we
mm,
might have to progress to we're not going to just really hang out with that person anymore,
yeah,
or we're going to distance ourselves, or we're going to cut that person out, however you want to term it. I mostly think that I will reestablish relationships if I need to, or
mhm,
if they are healthy for everybody.
mm,
So even if you think you're cutting somebody out, you could also think of it as kind of like this a temporary pause
I
as
love
everybody
that.
like finds their footing.
Yeah, because because it feels so dramatic, right? Especially when it's,
Right.
I mean, I think just frankly when it's like a family member, or somebody you feel like you have this, obligation to. Like that's just something that is in us. So I love that idea of it not being so dramatic and permanent, even in our language,
Yeah.
right? Because you gotta
Right.
like let yourself off the hook a little bit. Like
Yes.
you can't give yourself all of this weight of decision making in that space. It could literally be like, you know what? If you need to tell yourself right now, I just need my space right now. That's another thing is, like, I just need space from anybody like this right now in my life for the moment being, or we need to pause this relationship until we see some changes. It can be a hopeful
Yeah.
thought. It can be a hopeful action. Um, and again, sometimes, it's the best thing to save the relationship is to give it some time and to give it some space. And, like maybe like with the plant, it needs more room to grow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It also makes me think of, if I'm going to continue this plant analogy, like
Mhm.
I have orchids inside that rebloom, but they don't
Mm,
rebloom all the time, right? They rebloom seasonally. And maybe that's how I have to think
mm,
about relationships too, right? Like there's a right season for every relationship.
right.
And it can ebb and flow, and it can be, perennial, and it can always be a great relationship, or it can be one like, "That was special. We grew those seeds, and it was great, and
And maybe you
now
had a
it's gonna."
harvest,
Yeah,
and it fed your family, it fed your soul at that time, and that was all
yeah,
that its purpose was.
correct, right? And that flexibility, I think, in how we think and protect ourselves and protect our inner circle is so crucial to make us
Mhm.
feel good. Like, I think about what started at the outset was just how great it is to always talk to you. And I want that in all my relationships, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
because when I feel good and I feel confident, I feel positive, I am not only better for myself, I'm better for my business, I'm better for my
Mm,
relationships. Because I think
for the
all of it has
world,
to,
yeah.
yeah. And right, when you've been around somebody who is toxic or just kind of brings you down, or is difficult to have any sorts of communication or relationship with, it impacts you, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's, as I always tell one of my dogs, "Don't yuck his yum." Like, it yucks your yum when you're around somebody who is
Mhm.
not great.
Yeah, yeah, and you feel it, and you might not even recognize that you might be passing it on to other people, and then you look up one day and think like, "Who am I? Why am I
Yeah,
acting this way?" Right? And that's why it's so important to be conscious of it every day and be reflective of it every day. Maybe you need a little meditative practice, or maybe you literally just need a little debriefing with yourself or your uplift buddy after a hard conversation or a difficult interaction with somebody. But having those little moments of self-reflection, I think, are so key because, you just said something about wanting to have that same kind of feeling and that same kind of relationship with people or those same kinds of uplifting people in your life and in all walks of your life, in all aspects of your
yeah,
life. And I could not agree more. And I will say that, we were talking about work earlier and I yeah, I went through some challenging workspaces, but at the same time, like seeing what was not okay and what I did not want, again, I wish it never happened, and it's ideal for it never to happen. And everyone listening, you deserve to not be treated badly. You deserve to be treated well all the time. You don't have to have these experiences to get to this place. But for me, that helped me to be vocal and to articulate for myself and to others what I will and will not have in my workplace and in my work life. And, I wish that I didn't need to. Maybe you don't need that experience. And that's what I'm hoping is that people won't need those experiences to be able to articulate that. That's why it's important to talk about these things out loud and with each other because we can learn from each other's experiences instead of having to go through more bad experiences. Like, let's just assert ourselves as soon as we can, as fast as we can, as soon as we can get there, and let people know, like, this is unacceptable. This is what I will have. This is what I won't have. And I really believe you can get there. Like you can get to a place where you create your own work life that is also positive, that you're surrounded by people that are like you, that want the same things, that you work well with, that treat you well, that treat each other with respect. Like I believe that's possible. I think we're building it. I think that it all comes from intentionality though. You really have to not just want it, but be able to talk about it and to make it a reality by really, like, again, setting healthy boundaries and setting the expectation for everybody in the group of, like, this is what we do and do not do. This is how we respect each other. This is what it looks like, right? It's
Yeah,
people are just people wherever you go.
absolutely. And, start small and practice it.
Mhm.
Even if it's just a conversation with friends and somebody says something, offensive to somebody, say, "Hey, is that really how we want to talk about people?" Like
Mm.
it, just kind of set the tone so that and take those little practice steps so that you know when you need to set a boundary. And it'll become easier.
Oh,
We
yeah.
will stop thinking of ourselves on a day-to-day basis as martyrs and being useful to other people and start
Mhm.
building ourselves up because I think it's so crucial that we build ourselves up too, especially everyone
Yes.
who has been othered and been told all the things that tear us down growing up and have had those traumatic childhood experiences or difficult relationships to say society in general,
Mhm.
right? Like I think it's easier for those people who have been in power to set their boundaries and they do it effectively.
Oh, yeah.
But all of us need to be doing it because protecting yourself is not just for those people who are in power. It's for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that's what you need to, do right by yourself, like that's something that helped me get there where I was thinking, how am I going to help anyone else if I'm a mess? And
Right?
for me, it's important. It was important for my identity, and just recognizing that, like, that's what I want. I want to help. I want to make the world a better place. All that good stuff. Like, if that's you, then, understand it. It's a very basic thing of you can't take care of others unless you're taking care of yourself. And that includes, your uplift, your mental wellness and your emotional state. You have to prioritize it. Otherwise other people will tell you how to feel, frankly. And it will usually be bad. And so you're the one that has to care the most about that. And if you care about other people in your life, or even just the world over, just generally, then you will prioritize you and protect your uplift in that way.
Yes. Don't let other people yuck your yum. And
Mhm.
to you, Sai, I say thank you. Thank you for always being that person to make sure I'm uplifted in our conversations. And no matter what we're talking about, always just feels better afterwards.
Oh, thank you, Tessa. You are the one that showed me the way. You really are my inspiration for all of this, and that feeling is something special that we just are hoping everyone listening gets to experience. And if you're not, then work on it. Work on getting that in your life because you deserve it.
Yes, or, contact us. We are here to help
Yes,
everybody and make sure that everybody feels that excitement and uplift that Sai and I do.
absolutely. Love it. Well, thank you all for being here in community with us. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to staying uplifted with you.
Thank you guys. Until next time.
Bye bye.